Welcome to the podcast. Today, Chef Marie is speaking with artist Marcine Kiesling, owner of Artworks by Marcine in New Jersey. After creating an amazing commissioned art piece for Marie, she knew she had to get her on the pod. Marcine has a Master of Fine Arts and Bachelor of Fine Arts in painting. As a professional muralist, she can create and design murals for your home or business. Some of the many murals created include realistic murals, three-dimensional, illusion, abstract, watercolor, logo, and blacklight murals. Home decorators, interior designers, and home stagers call Artworks by Marcine for that one piece of unique wall art, whether it is a mural on the wall or ceiling, an accent wall highlighted with a decorative plaster wall finish, or a custom canvas painting to make their clients' spaces stand out. Please welcome our guest and friend of the show, Marcine Kiesling.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Happy, Healthy, and Hungry podcast. Today my guest is Marcine Kiesling or Kiesling?
Kiesling.
Kiesling. So Marcine is an artist. She is an owner of a mural and artistry. I have work done by her. I've gotten it commissioned by her. It's Artworks by Marcine. Thank you, Marcine. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's a pleasure to have you. So how are you?
Thank you for having me on. Oh my gosh. So speaking of business, so it was, I had to sandwich in like a last minute estimate this morning. And so while I'm driving on my way home, I get another call. So I set up another estimate for tomorrow. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. It's like a roller coaster. So
Wow.
that's how I am.
So are you finding that you're just driving all over the state at this point where it's wherever there's an estimate? I think you said you were pretty far north this morning, weren't you?
Yeah, so I was a little far north, but I try to keep my work, like if you can consider Central Jersey a band, going
Okay.
westward. Just
Okay.
because it's so congested in this state that for me
Mm-hmm.
to get to like North Jersey, it takes so long.
Yeah.
And the reality is, like, once I get to a project, if I've spent like 2 hours in traffic and I'm like this, and then I have to be expected to relax and paint, it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I've limited my scope, if you will. Oh, pardon me. So I try to work in like Monmouth County, Middlesex County, Somerset County, Hunterdon County, and then out into Bucks County in PA.
Okay.
So
Wow.
that's, yeah. So
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
just going to show off some work right now. I'm going to move my microphone. So I've had some work commissioned. And as you can see, this is probably the coolest piece of artwork I've ever gotten. And I have a lot of artwork that I've had people do for me before. So Marcine was kind enough to this is my business proper palette, my chef business. But I mean, look at that board. Look at that detail that you have of all of the herbs and everything. And then she put this, my favorite quote in there, which is by Rumi. And it's, when you do things from your soul, a river is running through you. So this is probably one of the nicest. I worked with you. I had a couple of ideas and you just kind of ran with it. You're like, no, I'll just do your logo and I'll put the name. And I love the rose gold. Like, I don't even know how you got that paint. I didn't even think that existed. And you made it happen. And that to me is so amazing that I've never had anybody, but those herbs look like I could just pluck them right out of the painting. It's so
Yeah.
realistic.
So that's kind of, how can I put it? That's like my Zen, it's like, I find therapy in doing the detail. I get lost
Wow.
in my own world, and It's almost like a hyper focus on doing that detail. And, my one of my mantras is it is in the detail. It's always in the details.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and if I can creatively like just embed something in the artwork that kind of makes it personal for you,
Mm-hmm.
that all the better, and the rose
Yeah.
gold, so I always get, inquiries from clients like, can you match this to, this light fixture finish? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, bring it on. I can do that. So when you said you wanted rose gold, I'm like, I gotcha. I gotcha. So I found it, got it, did it, no problem.
Wow.
But that's,
I was just so amazed by this because, like, when I first got it, I figured, a lot of artistry that I've gotten done, I'll put my hand over the painting and then the glitter would come off, right? So it's that glitter. I don't get that with yours.
no.
So
And you
it's
won't. You
amazing,
won't
amazing.
because when I do something, my whole thing is I'm going to do it so it's permanent, and so I take the extra step, go whatever it takes, to ensure that, it's going to last. Because anytime you call someone like me, you're making an investment in art,
Yeah,
and you don't want something that was like poorly constructed or installed and it's not
yeah.
going to last. So I'm very thorough when it comes to that. For example, I had a client a couple of years ago who wanted me to paint the perimeter of his pizza oven, and he wanted it to look more old and things like that. So I researched what kind of paint's going to withstand the heat of a pizza oven, because not all can.
Oh,
And then I found just the item, and yeah, I did it for him, and it's, to me, it's always in the preparation. It's the right tools for the job, and because you don't want to have product failure. I mean, that's the worst thing.
yeah.
You pour your time into something, your talent, and then to have product failure. So that's not what I'm about. So yeah,
No,
yeah,
that's amazing, and I completely understand that. And the reason I get that is because it's the same with food. If
right,
I'm going to a customer's home and I'm cooking or whatever I'm doing, if they get the product and they don't like it, it falls apart. It's not the right texture. It doesn't taste good. That's failure. And
yep,
to me, I don't like to bring that type of product forward. So
right,
I really um, love that you're saying that because there are a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but there are quite a few artists that I've come across in the past, and they'll say, "We'll paint a mural in your home. We'll do this and that," and then they kind of over promise and under deliver. So you get the imagery of what you think you're going to get, and then when it happens, the final product is just a big egg. It's a big goose egg, and it's unfortunate. And that has happened to a couple of friends of mine, myself, um, and it is what it is. But I love that you stand behind exactly what you do. So tell me a little bit about your mural work. So when you go to homes, you go to businesses. So give us a little bit, the listeners, a little bit of a background of exactly what your niche is.
sure, sure. Okay, so let me step back many years, many. So this whole art thing, it's always been a part of me.
Hmm.
I started working on larger formats when I was in college. When I was in college, I was expected to have a show. It was part of my honors thesis at college. So
Hmm.
um, I had large paintings. They were 5 feet by 7 feet.
Hmm.
Some of them were even larger on unstretched canvas. And I really liked that large format. So I always kept that in the back of my mind. Even when I went to graduate school, that whole large format carried itself through to my MFA show,
Hmm.
because I was working on large pieces. Um, and then it's funny because then when I started working, I started teaching I taught art, the format of my work became small. And I don't know why. I still have to think about why that happened. But then I started getting calls, would you come and paint something on my wall or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. So I did it. I did that while I was teaching, and it became sort of like a testing ground, a test run, if you will. And so, the life of a muralist, it's very interesting. I've painted babies' rooms, murals while the woman was in labor. And
Wow.
so
That's good.
I would hear her go, oh, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know if she was going to have to run to the hospital, but I think she waited for me to finish before she decided to go to the hospital. Yeah, it's just a very interesting kind of adventure that I've been on. I've been doing this for, it's going to be 30 years soon. So I've been doing my business for almost 30 years, about 27. And I've seen and experienced a lot of things. So, yeah, I kind of like working big, but I like doing the details. So it's almost like a small painting on a large wall. So I think my strength really is textures and ornamentation and creating illusions. Like for your painting. I love the wood grain of the cutting board. Creating the wood in the background of the painting, and then doing the detail of the herbs. I mean, that's for me like what I love. So I love seeing layers of stuff, creating illusions. And even, back in the day, in the 80s when faux finishing was like very popular, I started to really look at that too as a form of expression, because you're really creating a work of art on the wall. So the wall becomes your art. And I enjoy like adding many layers of stuff and creating depth. And, if I can sneak in some bling, I'll do that. Yeah. And I just like doing like off the beaten path stuff. So like concrete or rusting a wall, which is wild. And yeah, that's how I got started. And then I just started taking on more work, and then the teaching, ultimately I had to make a choice. And because my whole purpose was I was going to be self-employed, do my own thing as a gig, so that I could be with my children and I could do the mom thing too. And so, yeah, and it worked out really well. There were some days where it didn't work out so well. It's not all rosy, and, it's more like, okay, I'm on a schedule. I've got, so many hours to paint. And then you have to say, oh, you pray to the creativity gods, like, please let me get this part done of the mural, and you have to watch the clock. And yeah, I mean, I've worked in places with no heat. That was always a joy. Sometimes I'm working in a site where, the whole site is going under reno. So you'll hear like people coming in, testing the alarm system. That's a favorite. I'm trying to paint and I hear whoop, 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 or if they're testing, if they're testing the fire alarm and and I'm just like, and it's really loud. Yeah. So, and then it's, of course, bring your own toilet paper, because when you come to these job sites, I mean, they're primarily men, and,
you never know.
So you never know. And it's always over preparing, because you just don't know what you're going to face if you go on a job site like that.
That's amazing. Let me ask you, let me ask you really quick. While you were in school, or maybe now, where did your inspiration come from? Was it a famous artist that you saw that you were like, oh, Rembrandt, oh my God, I love this artist, or Picasso? Who did you have some sort of inspiration that brought you down this path?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of things. I want to say when I was younger, I always loved Vincent van Gogh. I was just, and plus, he embodied that whole narrative of the poor, starving artist. And, there's been so many theories by art historians that, he had psychological issues. It could have been from the lead in the paint. It could have been a number of things. But I always enjoyed like reading about him and, his artwork, and that he was always undervalued. He had no self-esteem when it came to his work. He never thought highly of his stuff. Um, and then when I was in college, I started to look at, some other work by some female artists, and so that was kind of a draw to me, and the whole feminist art movement. And then it became more of a political art movement that I was influenced by in the 90s. I was in New York City going to grad school, and this was like 1989, 1990, Tiananmen Square, like
Mm.
all of these things. And they were like, I'm influenced by so many things. I'm influenced, when I'm driving, because I do a lot of driving, and I just start looking around, and I'll pay attention, which I shouldn't be because I'm driving, but I pay attention to like the shapes of the trees, how they create shadows on the mountains, or the clouds creating shadows on the mountains, and just the different colors in the sky. A lot of nature inspires me. And I'm also inspired by, for example, Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook has an area all the way down, I guess they call those the admiral's quarters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there's a bunch of buildings that are no longer inhabitable. And
Hmm.
so there's an erosion of time. And that is a concept that I am very much interested in, is the layers left behind from history, and what kind of narratives could you have made from being in that space, and seeing those textures, just seeing the paint buckling and things like that. I love abandoned buildings. For example, I found on the internet probably what's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in Pennsylvania, and I was on my way to go pick my older son up from school, and I called this place. I said, can I come take a tour, because I wanted to see. And the person was, and this was during COVID, the person's like, I'll leave the key for you. Just open up this house. You can go walk around at your leisure and just lock up and put the key back in the slot. So this house was from the 1700s, I guess, one of the early colonialists.
Hmm.
Um, but I loved how the wooden floor warped, and you didn't know if
Hmm.
you were walking straight or crooked. I loved seeing the old wallpaper, and that there were layers of wallpaper underneath that. It was just like all of that stuff. There's history. And there was a human presence at one time, and it's no longer there, but you can kind of feel the energy. Like that kind of stuff I love. Um,
Yeah, that's wild because
it's just
I
wild, you know?
I am cut from the same cloth when it comes to that stuff. I absolutely love old buildings. I appreciate looking at the textures and the flooring, like how you said those big wide old floorboards that you don't see anymore,
Yep,
and
yep.
things that are just not of today's time. So yeah, there's so much history there, and I love that you get inspired by paying attention to nature. And I notice that too. Like if I'm driving up north and I start getting to the mountains, like if I'm going to a client's home and I see the shadow of the clouds coming over the mountains, like I never paid attention to that until you just said it. I
Yeah.
always see it and I'm aware of it, but I never think, "Oh, I'm going to paint that." Well, because I'm not an artist in that capacity, so I don't think of doing that, but I love how you are so attentive to all of your surroundings, and I love what your inspiration is, and ultimately this seems to be bringing you such happiness, and then you bring that happiness to your clients by way of creating these beautiful murals uh and paintings and whatever you do. If I had to ask you, what is one of your favorite paintings or murals or whatever it is that you've done over the years? What is I remember you did a barn. Now I thought that was pretty cool, right? You was like an outside of a barn that you
Yeah.
had. I
Yeah.
thought that was pretty neat. I've seen a lot of your work, but I'm curious what's your favorite?
It's funny. So I don't know, I have fleeting favorites, so I'm working on something now and it's my favorite. And then after I get done with it, I can like point out like, oh, I don't know if I like that but everything is a learning process. So, the
Sure.
whole act of creation, you're actually learning about yourself. You're learning not only about what the materials do, but you're learning about your own aesthetic, your own philosophy, and just you, right? So I have a couple of favorites. And so the first favorite, and this was during the shutdown. So there's a special preschool that will always be near and dear to my heart. And it's where my little guy, he's now 19, my little guy had gone to preschool. And it's a preschool for hearing impaired children. And so there was always discussion, we would come to visit and they would always say, you know what, one of these days you'll have to paint a mural for us. Well, in July of 2020 was one of those days. So the school was shut down. It was summertime. And I created a mural for the kids. And it wasn't just any mural. It took the length of a whole hallway that was, I think, around 150 feet.
Wow.
And yeah, it was 150 feet by 9 feet high. And I always like to have my art serve some kind of purpose besides just looking at it. There has to be some other meaning to it. So what I did was, being that I had gone through the whole curriculum with my son, I painted the whole curriculum on this wall. And so it's everything that the kids talk about when they first started the school and then when they're ready to graduate from the school. And I included so many things in terms of language, so this way when the teacher walked with the kids around in the hallway, what's above, what's below, what's next to, what's bigger, what's smaller. All of those things are inherently important in developing language when you're a preschooler. So I put all of those things in. I painted the school in the mural and everything like that. And another fun part was there's an audiological booth on this wall. So I called the mural Hearing the Rainbow because the rainbow came out of the audiological booth. And it was
so
above
neat.
it's above the scenery. So it's above the curriculum because I wanted the scenery to be at a 4-year-old's height.
Mm-hmm.
So I painted this rainbow and it twists and curves and goes all over the place in this hallway. And then on the other side of the audiological booth, I painted what we call the speech banana. So it's an audiogram, and it's when you go for a hearing test, what sounds at what decibel do you hear? And it was very helpful for the parents because when they would go bring their child in to get their hearing tested, they would then see, oh, this is what my child is able to hear, or this is what my child is unable to hear. And it just solidifies stuff, So that was a favorite. Recently, I painted something for my son's high school. It was their senior graduation gift. And it was St. Joseph, and St. Joseph is holding the school mascot, which is the falcon. And there's a glow that's coming behind St. Joseph, but also the falcon. And I painted that, and it was kind of like almost in a heavenly kind of background. And then the border of the painting has these lilies because St. Joseph is always seen with holding lilies. So I have lilies with the school's prayer painted around the perimeter of the painting. So,
that's so nice.
Yeah, I love doing all kinds of stuff, and every project, I think I have a favorite part of the project too. Mm-hmm. So, for example, I painted this mural of butterflies and it was trees, spring trees, and it was for this little munchkin. I want to say she was not even 2 yet. And her mom had sent me a video of her sitting in front of the mural and clapping. And I was just like hysterical laughing. I'm like, yes, that's what it should be,
That's so
It's
cool.
like, that's when my stuff is rewarding for me. You know, when I see my clients and they're like, wow, and either start crying because, you know, they're moved. I captured what they wanted,
Yeah.
or it just creates such a cool vibe in a space that they're just so happy. That's what brings me joy.
That's so great. And I feel that. I think that's the importance of like what I do now with just the podcast of branching out. It's, you know, finding these stories and bringing them to the table, so to speak, to say, look, you know, this person started here. It was, you know, now doing these murals and doing paint. Like that's how I was when I saw this painting that you had made for me. I was brought to tears because it just embodied everything that I wanted. I'm getting choked up just thinking of it because it was my essence. So it's so difficult for other people to um, get your essence and put that onto paper and onto canvas or a wall or whatever's in your space. So it's like every time I look at it, it just makes me smile and it just brings so much life to my space. So um thank you for that. Thank you for doing what you do because it's such a rare thing. You know, you always hear of people, like I laugh in my family if it's like, I'm going to go to school to become an artist. Pfft, what are you crazy? You're never going to make it. You're not going to make money. You're not going to do this. You're not, you know, and that's just like, to me, that is such an old mentality, that old Italian mentality that I grew up with, that you have to be, you know, you don't have to go to college, but at the same time, you know, go be an electrician, go work at the, you know, the whatever company. And we were all blue collar workers. And it's just like, I get it. I understand it. And for me, you know, working with my hands, I can never stop. My hands are always going. They're in something, and I'm thinking about what I'm going to make and how I'm going to make it. And my hands, like I was just telling you before, my hands are brittle. My fingers are just dry and beat up, and because they're in water all day and just whatever, you know. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate everything that you do. Now, I looked
Thank
at
you.
when you're welcome. And when I was sitting here when you first came on, I said, "Oh, that's a beautiful mural behind you." What is it? And tell everybody what that is. If for our viewers who are on YouTube and Spotify that could actually see this. To
Yeah.
me, it looks like, I can't think of the artist, not Rembrandt, not Monet, maybe Monet. I don't know. It kind of has that feel. You might be able to know the artist, but
It's more like, I guess I would classify it as more modern at this point. But
yeah,
so this is the wall. You have to understand, I'm working out of my studio. So my studio is
yeah,
in my home,
okay.
and you know, life throws us curveballs, right? And all of these things. I don't have a big studio, but I made do for almost 30 years in this space. So this is the
Mm.
wall that I do all of my like faux finishing samples on. That's why there's all different colors.
I think it's
And
so neat.
you know, I'll staple the samples onto the wall, and then sometimes I'll start writing on the wall like little notes, like I did this or I did that, or up here, you know, I'll put post-it notes so I know which sample I'm working on, and I keep everything together with I call it my recipe book, with my notebook. But
See?
that's the wall. So
The
you know, I
wall.
have very limited space. I want to say my studio is super tiny. It's like maybe 13 by 13. um, and that includes like my wood cutting tools and everything else. So, but I've made it work. I mean, it's okay. I'm happy with it. Maybe when I win the lottery, I will get one of these like standalone buildings with like a full wall of glass, and I'll have natural daylight and stuff like that. But I mean, I've made the best of it. It's cool and funky, and I've got Christmas lights up, and yeah, so
You
it's my
know what?
space.
That's your space, exactly. And you want to know, you work on site so much anyway. So it's like at some point you're like, well, do I really you don't need a giant space in my opinion, because you work off site, you're at jobs and you're in their space, right? So um I'm just
Yes
putting
and
that out
no.
there. Yeah.
Yes and no. So, for example, when I did the painting for the school, I don't know if you can still see it, but I have like a wooden cleat that I had to put across the
Oh
wall
yeah. Yeah.
because I had a 4 foot by 8 foot painting on here. And that's kind of like the max length I can work on down in my studio.
Got
Um,
it.
Sometimes it's gotten really challenging. For example, I did some murals for Keensburg Water Park, and it's one of the food kiosks. So these murals were like 2.5. The boards were 2.5 feet high, but they were eight
Mm.
feet long, and I
Oh
had to
wow.
continue the imagery from one board to another. And it's like I had this little space. I had part of the paintings like reaching out into another space of the basement, and then I
Mm.
had them like all around. It was just, but I make do. So
You
sometimes it
make
doesn't
do.
work out in terms of, what I can do. Like I said, when I win the lottery the next time, maybe I'll get a bigger space so I can do bigger pieces. Um, yeah, and sometimes, I have to do canvas murals. And so that becomes a little bit of a challenge because, I've got my nice wall, but right now it needs to be skim coated. I have to put plaster on top of it to smooth it out. So sometimes
Mm.
it gets to be a challenge when I'm working on stuff like canvas and I'm, putting the canvas on the wall and I don't have it stretched onto stretcher bars.
Oh,
So yeah, I
okay.
mean, like I said, I've made it do for this long. It will be fine.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
what
yeah,
your limitations are too. So like, okay, I could do this much space, I could do this much, and from
I
the
lost you for a
space.
minute. Wait a minute. Let me see. I'm having an issue.
Sure.
I'm having an issue. Let me see if
Oh,
this
I
one
could hear
works.
you.
Yeah,
I
I
could
can hear
hear
you
you.
now.
Okay, there you
Okay.
go. When the
Yeah.
space that you have, you know what your limitations are. Same for me. When someone comes to me and they say they want to do a party for like 300, I'm like, no. I don't want to do
Yeah.
that. I know
Yeah.
my limitations. I feel like, my artistry of cooking just doesn't fit that large mass amounts of people. That's not really where I want to be recognized. I rather be in a smaller setting where it's more boutique, basically like, you know, artistry on the plate. And
Mm-hmm.
I understand how everything is so intricate, and you eat with your eyes, you eat with all of your senses. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel the same way when you walk into a room, like sometimes a restaurant. If you walk into a restaurant and it smells like mold and mildew and it's got 1980s, paneling, wood paneling on the wall, and no life to it, do I want to eat there? Probably not. But
Yeah.
if I go into a restaurant that smells clean and it doesn't have nasty carpet down and there's beautiful murals on the wall painted by you, or you know what I mean? It's like
Right.
you get what I'm saying. It's just you bring life to the spaces that you go to, and the same goes for anything. And I feel more and more people I'm noticing are doing like frescoes. I see people in Colts Neck in homes there where they're doing. Have you ever done a fresco before? Have you ever done that?
I've painted on top of plaster, but the plaster was dry. So your
Okay.
traditional fresco would be mixing pigment up into the wet plaster and
Hmm.
painting with it that way. Um, yeah, so that is a whole art in itself. Maybe one day I'll pursue that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, right now, I'm more into doing what I do where I paint on the wall or like I said,
Sure.
paint into the dry plaster. For example, I had a lady, I love her by the way, she's awesome. And she said, Marcine, she goes, there's this show on Netflix. She said, and I love the Room. And I'm like,
Mm.
okay. I don't watch anything on Netflix. So I'm like, so I employed a helper and I'm one of my friends. And I'm like, could you do me a favor? Look up this show. And it
Yeah.
was, I don't have the name of the show. It was something about a woman came to Italy and she fell in love with a chef, Italian chef. And so she was living in Italy for a while or something like that. But the bottom line is it was more of this Florentine slash Tuscan kind of living. She was in one of these large flats, and the walls had a plaster finish on them, and then they
Oh,
had hand painted stuff on top. And so my friend sent me a couple of clips that she was able to freeze, and I saw what she was talking about. So I did that for this lady. I gave her, it was a 3-color plaster, and it's called wet into wet. So the technique is that you're constantly keeping a wet edge, and you're mixing sort of on the wall as you plaster. And then
okay.
I painted these flowers that she wanted. She was pretty specific. I painted the flowers that she wanted in the colors that she wanted. And I added a little bit of bling to the plaster. So it's very understated. Like, you can walk in and every once in a while you'll see like a flicker or sparkle. And
Nice.
and then she tied in the whole room by, and I talked her into it by painting the woodwork this purple that was in the artwork that I did on her walls. So everything tied together. It's just, this is what I do. This is my passion. I love doing this for people. It's not always rosy. For example, I have fallen off a ladder. I did get hurt. Um, or as you get older and you're still in this business, I already had one hip replaced, and
Yeah.
it's just from the years of that you're beating up your body. And so it's not all rosy, and it's not all hearts and flowers and that kind of stuff. I mean, there are some times where it's a little dangerous, and I try to be safe. I the scaffolding that I have has a guardrail on top of it, but I'm getting older, and I don't know at this point if I want to climb and be up like 22 feet in the air, unless I'm in some kind of like scissor jack that I can push the button and it goes up on its own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, my days of climbing with all of my tools and everything, I think they're kind of coming to a close. Yeah,
Mm.
so I mean, that's also another thing you have to look at too. If you venture into this business, um, you have to understand that there's going to be ebbs and flows. You're going to be super busy, and then you're not going to have anything.
Mm.
And the times when you don't have things, those are the times that you should be researching. If you can afford to take a class to update your portfolio, you should be doing that.
Mm.
For example, one of my goals down the road is to become a certified color expert. So this way I get some more letters after my name. And so, that's in the works. And perhaps in the works, I'll be doing canvases that, I'll be able to ship. So you'll be able to shop at my store, or commission me. I'll make something for you and I just ship it. So, I
Mm.
mean, you always have to understand that things aren't always going to remain the same. They never do. And especially with business, so I hate to use that P word, but sometimes you do have to pivot. I hate that word,
Yeah, I
but
know. I know
it's,
everybody uses it, but it's
you
it's
know,
very necessary. We all had to do it during the big bad C word.
yeah,
We all
yeah,
had to do it, and you make do, and you're so right, because I feel like in every business, especially in the food industry, artistry, any kind of artistry, and I consider cooking an artistry,
absolutely.
where you have that downtime.
Hmm.
After New Year's, it's just it drops off. Although last year I didn't do that. Last year it was nonstop, which is great. This year, it ebbs and flows with the economy, what people can
Yep,
afford, what
yep.
people are spending their money on. And during the downtime, you have to hone your craft. You have to think
Hmm.
about, like, during the winter months, I'm thinking, all right, what could potentially be in season for the fall, for the spring? What new menus can I create? What new offerings could I give to my customers and potential customers? That's the type of things that we have to do as business owners. And it
Yep.
isn't all puppies and rainbows. There's times where we're going to
Nope.
be freaking broke and we got to do other things to make money. And that's,
Yeah.
being in the businesses that we've been in for as long as we have, we understand that. And that's why I love the up and coming, people and I have a young girl that I know who's doing a lot of artwork, and she's like, "Oh, I got this going and I got that going." And I'm like, "That's great. That's awesome. Now get yourself commissioned. Keep working on, reaching higher and higher and higher." And
Mhm.
there's just like anything you're going to have. It's not like you're not working for the carpenters union like my dad did back in the day. It's
Yeah.
like it's a different breed, it's a different line of business. And when you're putting your craft out there, you have to make people really want you, and you have to hit the niche of where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I applaud you, because I've been watching you for years now, and you just always seem to get really cool jobs. The finished products are amazing, and you could go on you could follow Marcine at Artworks by Marcine on Instagram. So I have your Instagram up, and there's a bunch of really cool photos. And I'm going to go by the camera. You can't really see that far
Oh,
away,
thank you.
but again, I'm gonna plug these up in our notes. And
Thank
it's
you.
you do such amazing work. I mean, I've seen, like, this is bizarre. Like, you painted a door, like, so this is a mural on a door. Why not? You said a mural painted for a New Jersey smoke shop. Like, look at how cool that is. I mean,
Yeah, and
come
I
on.
mean, again,
That's
a
great.
lot of businesses, they come to me and they're like, "Look, I need to make my space have a vibe. I need people
Yeah.
when they come in, they see this is my brand, and they want to come back." Or, there's always different specifications. So, in the case of that smoke shop, I mean, the guys, they were all young guys, a nice group of guys. And so basically, they were selling, CBD stuff, whatever. And so it was kind of like a spin off Bob Marley. And I think that
Yeah.
and so it was taking like the marijuana leaf and making a pattern out of it for the wall with, like,
It was
these
just so
wild
cool.
colors.
I mean,
you
the
know
barn. I see the barn, and you had one of those really. She had one of those really cool, famous. I think it's the bowls. Those bowls. And it was all in dollar signs. It's kind of hard to see, but I remember when you got commissioned for this, because you were working, I think, on mine, or you just finished mine, and I think you took this one, and that was
Yeah,
back in 2022. And I
yeah,
remember seeing the finished barn, and I said, who the heck wants to go to like Home Depot or somewhere and just pick up a boring barn? And when you could have this beautiful barn, I'm like, I would want to like have a little like cool little workshop or so. I'd put a hot plate and a rug and some lights in there and make it like a she den or something.
yeah. And I mean, like I said, every project has a story. So, case
Yeah.
in point with this project. So, I had gotten a call from this lovely woman, and she said to me, my husband just inherited one of these big cows that was in Manhattan, and it's called a cash cow. She
Oh
said,
my
"I
gosh.
need you to do something with my shed, so it looks like the cash cow belongs with the shed." So, yeah, and she was very specific what she wanted. So, you know, I took three sides of this shed, which was, it's huge, right? It's like, I don't know,
It's a
12
big
feet.
shed.
Yeah, it's huge.
It's yeah, it's definitely like a 12 by 15 or something like
Yeah.
that. It's pretty
So
big.
so the one side by the cash cow, I made it look like the cow was going to go down a pathway of pennies, like a money pathway. And
Yeah.
she wanted like sunflowers and stuff, because where she lives is, she's surrounded by a lot of rural farms and stuff like that. The front of the barn, the shed, she wanted to see from her kitchen, and
Mm.
she just wanted it to look like the area that she lived in. So I
Yeah.
painted horses, I painted all kinds of stuff. And then the other side of this shed was, she had a playground installed next to it, and so basically it was a mural about the grandkids. And it had
Mm.
something for each one of the grandkids, and it was very colorful and everything like that. Um, and so, like I said, every project I think has a story. And I really have to like sit down and maybe, like, I started having on my website, where I would like put in a blog and whatnot. But I really have to get
Yeah.
back to that because, that's another thing with business. And, again, to my message to all of the young people, sometimes your business, you're not always doing your business. It's all of the
Yeah.
ancillary stuff, what I would call the BS. It's all the BS. So, the taxes, the books, the blah, blah, blah.
I'm going to
So,
share. Look at this. So everybody, anyone who's viewing, you could see the outdoor shed mural. As you could see, could you see it, Marcine?
no, I don't see it
You
popping
don't
up.
see it. Okay. So on my end, it should be, it's sharing here. Um,
Oh,
it's
I see it
okay.
now.
It's, you
Yeah.
see it now. Yeah. So this is what, so look at the size of this shed. Cause I wanted you guys to, because art is visual, right? It's one thing for us to explain it to you. It's another to show it. And I mean, the beautiful sunflower patches. Look at this. It's incredible. And that looks like little pieces like those pavers. They almost look like round cuts of wood in that path there. Right. What is that? It's kind of hard to
Okay,
tell
so
here.
yeah, where the cow is, those are actually pennies. So if you zoom in, you'll see
Oh,
they look like they're cut pieces of wood,
nice.
but they're actually pennies.
Okay, let me
Yeah.
zoom up on that. Oh, I'm stuck. I shared the wrong thing. There we go. I don't know if I can zoom up anymore. Oh yeah, look at that. There's the head of the penny. Look at
Yeah.
that. That is so neat. That's so neat. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff that, you know, an artist is going to share. I mean, I wanted people to see this from our perspective where art, you have to visually see it. It's like if you go to my Instagram page, if I don't have photos of food, people are not going to want to work with me. They're going to be like, why don't you have pictures of your art up there? The same way that I need to have pictures of food. So it's very interesting um, how people are visual, even if they aren't an artist. Anyone who eats food, anyone who buys a home or decorates a home, everything is visual. We are visual beings, so it's very apropos for us to sit here and show this imagery to people. And I encourage everyone to go out to Marcine's website. It's artworks by Marcine, MARCINE.com. Everybody calls her Marcy. She gets a million different names, so that's okay.
Just don't call me painter lady.
No,
That I don't respond to.
no, no painter lady. But in finishing, I always ask everybody this question: what's your favorite meal? If you had to have a last meal today, what would it be? Besides coffee, because I know you like coffee. That's not a meal.
It can be. Eggplant parmesan.
Eggplant
No questions asked.
parmesan.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What's
Yeah.
your favorite? Oh gosh, eggplant parm. So I would have never have guessed that. Just such a that is such a non-carnivore response. I'm so used to people like steak. I'm gonna have a stack of ribs, you know. I love it. I enjoy a good I make a chicken parm stack. So it's like it's it's I do discs, rounds, and I encourage everyone really quick, if you're going to make your own chicken parm, I'm not chicken parm, your eggplant parm, the best way to make eggplant, any way you cut it, if you cut it long ways or if you cut it just in rounds, I encourage you to salt it and put it on drying racks and then layer it with uh, paper towels. And what
Yep.
that does is it takes that bitterness
Mm-hmm.
and the not necessarily the bitterness, but that, like, I call it the heartburn of the because if you get it is a bitterness of the eggplant, because a lot of people have digestive issues with eggplant because there's acidity inside of that. So when you use a little bit of kosher salt, layer, it soaks all of that up and gets it out. And you notice it's like a little bit brown and oxidized, which is normal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But definitely, I'm so happy to hear that you are loving the eggplant. You're doing well. It's so good to connect with you again.
Same here.
And I'm so happy to hear that you're doing well. It's like, it just brings joy to me. So
Thank you. Thank you.
That's it, folks. So do you have anything that you want to tell anyone to go follow your page? Any upcoming things that you're doing? Please feel free to share that.
Yeah, so as Chef Marie mentioned, you definitely want to check me out on Instagram at Artworks by Marcine. That's my tag. Also on Facebook, same name. My website. I'm going to be doing some different things now. So I'm going to be working on a house that's coming up where I'm using a mineral paint, a lime-based paint. And it's very environmentally friendly, low VOC. And basically I'm going to be doing the whole house in this finish. And then I've got some other things coming down the pike. And I always have a bunch of clients, like for you, for example, we stay friends, we stay in touch and stuff like that. And I treat all my clients that way, so I always keep in touch with them, and they become repeat clients, and it's almost like they become part of my extended family, because I offer that kind of boutique service. To me, it's all about connecting and connections and not stressing my client out, because let's face it, the world is stressful enough, right? So,
sure
yeah. So, I just try to keep everything kind of low key. I call it that I'm in the happiness business, because I make people happy, and that makes me happy. And, so that's what's coming down the pike. Just more, like, if I can find more projects that are, I hate to use the word bizarro, but that's what piques my interest. It's like,
oh yeah.
The more interesting it is, I'm like, okay, tell me more,
Yeah,
so.
you're an artist. You're an eccentric personality where most artists have to be a little bit off keter, right? Like, come on, you and I are a little off. People think
I am a little off.
Yeah, we're both a little off in a lot of different ways, and it's just the way we are. Yeah. And I love it, and I love everything about you. And please, I encourage everyone here to go follow Marcine. She's an amazing artist. For her to do the work for myself, for people that I know, businesses, anybody listening, if you have murals or anything that you're looking for in your home, hit her up. She will take really good care of you. And I promise you that. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. I've been on a little bit of a break. Summertime's busy. I probably should have started the podcast during my down months, but I haven't had any. Knock on wood.
Yeah. So, hey, that's what we do, man. We knock on wood.
That's it. So keep on keeping on, and I appreciate you. And we will see you on our next podcast. And thank you, Marcine, for joining us. And take care. Bye.
Okay. All right.
I don't know about you guys, but I work out 5 days a week, and I need a lot of protein to build strong muscles. So I've discovered Paleo Valley. They are my go-to for healthy snacks on the go. Whether I'm craving one of their protein-packed beef sticks or enjoying one of their delicious protein bars, mine being chocolate, of course, they've got you covered. Click the link below to save up to 25% store-wide. No checkout code needed. Don't miss out on this opportunity to transform your health with Paleo Valley. Thank you for listening to the Happy, Healthy, and Hungry podcast. We appreciate your support and encourage you to follow, like, and share our content with your friends and family. Together, we can continue to inspire others and grow our community. We'll see you on the next episode.